Iniziate pure.
Ok, grazie. Vai Gonzalo. The floor is yours, Gonzalo.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon. Good morning, Latin America, and good afternoon in Europe. Welcome everybody to the fourth day of the International Symposium Looking for Integral Development, Theories and Practices to implement circular and ecologically oriented economic systems and build a fairer society. Talks between Europe and South America. My name is Gonzalo Valdivieso. I'm the director of the Villarrica campus of the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, co-coordinator of the Roots Towards Sustainability University Network, and a member of the scientific committee of this symposium. I want first to excuse Fernando Diaz Lopez, who won't be with us today due to health reasons. We hope he will recover soon. We arrived to this fourth day with a lot of great experience of the previous discussions on this symposium. We had on the first day an extraordinary panel focuses on the international challenge of collaboration to address the main objectives of development, with different views of what development should mean. We also talk about the relationships between countries, especially between Latin America and Europe, and the different ways to foster international collaboration. On the second day, we had a panel with economists and leaders of international organizations who talk about the ways to foster and implement new institutional agreements and tools to transform our path in a more integral and sustainable way. On the third day, we had local experiences of resistance in which communities, mainly from Latin America, are implementing practices of agroecology and sustainable development with an important focus on their own cultural traditions. In this fourth day and fourth and last day of the symposium, we will talk about circular economy and how it should contribute to address the development challenges we are facing, especially in Latin American countries. Closing the Circle, Men, Nature, and Technology was a book written by Barry Commoner 50 years ago in 1971 that used this circle as a metaphor in the idea of what we will call now sustainability. This is not new, and a lot of water has gone under this bridge. In Europe, the new circular economy action play has created a thriving environment and transforming the economy and the manufacturing sector. Since the year 2015, in Latin America, a large number of regional and national forums have been discussing the prospects and opportunities that circular economy model can bring to the economy, mostly focusing on similar issues that those discussed in Europe, with an attention to key extractive industries, for example, mining in the Latin American cases, manufacturing and waste management. However, the European Centre vision of circular economy may not sufficiently address the challenge of social justice, inclusiveness, poverty alleviation, and resilience of natural ecosystems. There is a need to critically review the mainstream and technocratic vision of circular economy and embrace behaviors and cultural learnings from Latin American local communities that still live in or try to live in harmony with nature. A few days ago in Chile, as in the rest of Latin America, we received the terrible news that we already knew, that poverty has an important rise in this last year. So in this context, we want to discuss the ways in which these ideas related to circular economy can actually be useful to address many social, environmental, and development issues in Latin America. We will have an extraordinary panel to discuss this idea this morning in Latin America and afternoon in Europe. Each panelist will have 10 minutes to present an initial statement. Then we will follow with a round table of questions and comments. And the audience can send us by chat at the streaming platform or in the Zoom chat your questions that we will use in the round table. Now we're going to start with this panel, and I want to present our first speaker. That will be Professor Roberto Soboli from the Universidad Católica del Sacro Cuore de Milano. Professor Soboli, I will introduce you. Professor Soboli is full professor of economic policy and teaches economic policy and resources in the environment at the Universidad Católica Milano. At that university, he's the rector delegates for research and sustainability. In the past, he has been researcher of NOMIPSPA, Cariplo Foundation for Scientific Research, and the research office of Monte Edison. For 12 years, he has been research director at the National Research Council, where at the present he is research associate at the Research Institute on Sustainable Economic Growth. Since 2001, he has been team leader with different topic centers of the European Environmental Agency, and at the present, he leads the task on green economy transition of the European Topic Center on Waste and Materials in Green Economy. He is member of the steering committee of the Sustainable Economy of the Swiss National Science Foundation, research associate of the Foundation Enrico Mattei, and a board member of CITES, the Inter-University Center on Sustainability, Environmental Economics and Dynamics Studies. He has been a task leader in Horizon 2020 projects and projects leader in about 50 research projects at the international, national, and regional level. Thank you, Professor Soboli, for being with us today. You have 10 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation and the invitation to take part to this very interesting cycle of conferences, and very glad to have the possibility to exchange ideas and to work together on these topics. I am sharing a few slides to give you my presentation. I hope you can see these slides.
Yes, perfect.
Can you please confirm? Well, in essence, my initial presentation will be about giving a few messages from Europe about the circular economy, in particular, one about the transition we have undertaken in Europe towards the circular economy, and the other two messages are about the problems we are facing in a properly defined transition towards circular economy. I will start from the first message starts from a sort of question, and it is about whether the circular economy is actually so new as we are used to think. Well, what you see here is the so-called waste hierarchy, which is the principle guiding and shaping the European waste policies since 1975. Okay, I stress the 1975. This is clearly an approach reflecting common sense and wisdom, high priority prevention, then reuse, then material recycling, then energy recovery, and then disposal. I mentioned my grandmothers simply because they had exactly this model and this approach in managing the household resources. Okay, and of course my grandmothers were very poor, and we are now very rich. So we have the challenge to implement this mindset in a very rich world in which we are used to consume a lot and to over consume. But I stress that we have started in a way the circular economy since the mid of the 70s. We didn't call it circular economy at all, but these are the key principles of a circular economy. So what is really new at present with the circular economy in Europe? Here I have reported a few new conceptualizations that are very inspiring and are giving us very interesting suggestion on the scope and the direction of a circular economy. But I want to stress that the root it is based on wisdom and common sense and moral attitude by people. So in Europe now we have an incredible convergence across policies, across businesses and business models, including finance, which is addressing the circular business model and are trying to measure and define circular business model in order to give a preference in credit. Okay, you see here the action plan from the new action plan from the European Commission. But if you take the new industrial strategy for Europe, half of it is about circular economy. The other half is about digitalization. Okay. And of course, the circular economy is part of the European Green Deal. But here you see the incredible number of networks and initiatives undertaken by businesses toward exploring the business possibilities for the circular economy. So we have something that is really old and really new at the same time. And we need to merge the old principle and the old wisdom and the possibility of innovation we have in front of us to create a new industrial paradigm. The second message is about the policy contradiction related to bioresources. Well, I think that the topic of today is about bioresources in general and the ecosystem. Well, if we take the biomaterials flow across Europe, you see this situation that we have a great number of resources that are wasted or used in low-value processes. Total uses of biomass in Europe is about 72% for energy. And we still have, non-recycled waste that are 38% of domestic extraction. This is a great misallocation of these very precious resources. And we have in front of us two circular bioeconomy pathways. The one is towards energy, which has a problem in my view, and not just from my view, in the competition, between using virgin biomass for energy or to use a waste, properly defined waste feedstock to produce energy. The other pathways is the one of biomaterials and to create new bio-based materials, chemicals, and applications. Well, at present in Europe, we have a situation in which renewable energy policies highly subsidized renewables. And the result is this, the one you see in this picture. The largest part of production of renewable energy in Europe is still based on biomass. Not on photovoltaics or wind energy, but on biomass. This is the blue line. So we are burning an incredible amount of virgin bioresources, residues from agriculture and forestry and so on. And this is a misallocation simply because we have a very good alternative, which is to have a recovery for these biomaterials. I've put here the example of biorefineries, which is a way to give a very high value added to these fixed stocks. And this is a way we have to pursue to avoid this misallocation induced by renewable energy policies that pushes us to consume a lot of bioresources for energy. So we are missing value because we are burning too much virgin bioresources. We have to recall the waste hierarchy I presented at the beginning. We can, in front of us, alternatives that can keep CO2 entrapped and get the maximum economic value, for example, in biochemistry. And this is an open issue for the dynamics of the circular economy in Europe. Third and final point, we are wasting an incredible amount of food. Here are the figures for food waste in Europe. And you see the numbers here, households, food wastage at about 46 million tons per year. This is the only official estimate we have. This is an enormous amount of losses. This is a great mistake, even from a moral point of view. Pope Francis says that any act of consumption is a moral act in the Laudato Si. So we have to keep into account this dimension, the multiple dimension of food wastage. A few years ago, I have made an estimate using input-output table and so on the value, economic value of food wasted and losses. And the value is incredibly high. It is about 1.4 billion euros per year. So households are losing a lot of money by adopting this approach based on overconsumption and wastage without care on be parsimonious and wise in buying and consuming. Now Europe is going towards adopting a binding policy target to halve the amount of food waste. I'm a bit skeptical about the possibility to achieve this target, simply because it depends largely on personal behavior. We have a child in the group. Okay, that's fine. That's wonderful. Okay. I am a bit skeptical, simply because, here I have a fundamental question. If it is so expensive, why we continue to waste so much food? And I refer here to a very nice work by Joseph Stiglitz, this towards the general theory of consumerism, which says that, we are moving in a way similar to the community we refer to. If we have learned to consume a lot, we consume a lot for a long time. Information and advertising is pushing us in the same direction. So in a way, we are entrapped in this cultural mindset. And the question is how to break this circle. Here we have a negative circularity in our behavior in a way. So we have to recover a moral attitude toward food. And in particular, we have to leapfrog the phase of development which implies a large amount of wastage and keeping the grandmother's mindset and their value. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Soboli. Really interesting, this European framework of what is going on in Europe and these three messages that you provide us. I want to remind everybody who are in the Zoom to deactivate their microphones while we are doing the presentations. And also remind you that you can write on the chat of the different platforms if you have any questions for the roundtable that we're going to have later. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Antonia Biggs, who is our next presentation. Antonia is a geographer from the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, with 14 years of experience in project management, multi-sectoral coordination, and development of activities related to the environment, mainly for the implementation of public policies. Today, from Fundación Chile, she leads the Chilean Pact of Plastic, a public-private initiative based on the new economy of plastics of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, with the mission to carry out the roadmap drawn up by the members of the pact until 2025. She was also part of the environmental ministry of Chile, the environmental ministry of Chile. Antonia, you have 10 minutes for your first statement.
Thank you, Gonzalo, and thank you for the invitation. My speech is going to be very, very short, but I wanted to share with everybody what has been going on in Chile in the last few years. So first of all, to let you know that we have, as a country, a national roadmap on circular economy. And as was stated just in the presentation, the previous presentation, it is very focused on waste management. That is true, that is the focus. For example, the Ministry of the Environment has an office, a circular economy office. This circular economy office used to be the waste management office. So it is true that the logic behind our circular economy roadmap is regarding waste management and waste hierarchy. So that's the first thing that I wanted to point out. And the truth is that this roadmap was worked with a lot of institutions, with a lot of intervention also from citizens, from normal citizens that were able also to introduce whatever they thought was missing on this roadmap. So just a few weeks ago, the Ministry of the Environment had the last version of this roadmap, and it is going to be online very soon so that you can share it. But my thought is that if we have the question on is circular economy can help face challenges in Latin America, if that is our big question, I would say yes. Even though our circular economy is very focused on waste management, there is a lot of opportunities there regarding this issue. And I usually do courses for small enterprises, for startups, for SMEs. And what we have told them is that during the whole cycle of waste management, and maybe my focus is I am very focused on plastics right now and the whole life cycle of plastics. But even in that whole life cycle of plastics, you see opportunities or you see gaps in the waste management. And in these gaps, you see opportunities for startups, for SMEs, for small enterprises that can offer their services or their products to solve some of the problems that you see during the whole cycle. So for Latin America, which SMEs bring a lot of job opportunities, it is very important. It is very key. And in that sense, it is inclusive, or in some way it gives opportunity. And if you look at the roadmap on circular economy, and I was going through it right now, the last version has a lot of goals regarding green jobs, right? Green jobs. What opportunities is this going to have for green jobs? So I would say that, once again, even though it is very focused on waste management, there is this opportunity. And what we usually, or when I have to do these courses, what I do say is that you cannot take an innovative actions or implement circular economy strategies without, of course, this systematic view, right? With this systematic view. Thus, you must take into account, if you are a SME or if you are a startup or if you want to be involved, right, in this new model, in this new circular economy, you need to take into account two important things. One is, what is really the need of your consumer? What is the problem that you want to solve for this consumer? Not just think of anything new and write it down and try to see if this startup or this idea is going to work. First, the other way around. Please take into account what is the real need of your consumer. And we have a reuse model that is really well known now worldwide, which is Algramo, which is a reuse model, right? And Algramo started the other way around, just like I just stated. He wanted, or the person that invented this, wanted to solve a social problem of people that have low income, pay way more in their local markets because they can't buy in the supermarket a big amount because they don't have the money. They go day by day, right? Trying to buy things day by day. And if you add this up, they end up paying more. So he thought this is not right, right? This is not right. And what they are paying is not for the product itself, it's for the packaging. So he said, that's not the idea. So I'm going to propose to buy in bulk, right? To buy that, not to really pay for the product and not for the packaging, right? So he wanted to solve that social problem. But it is also circular economy, and it's also avoiding to produce more pollution or to produce more waste. So he's in the circle already, solving a problem, a social problem that is very well known in Latin America, probably in other countries. But also he knew what the installed technical capacities are in Chile. That's two things you have to take into account. So what is the consumer need? And two, what is the really installed technical capacity to innovate in a circular way? Because I can have a great idea and I want to, for example, be part of this recycling industry, but maybe I don't have the infrastructure to recycle some of these items. Then your idea will not go through, and then you won't have a prosperous startup or a prosperous SMEs, and you won't be able to generate the green job that we want to be integrated in the circular economy. So I see it with good eyes. I do, as I said at the beginning, I am aware that it's very focused on waste management, but I do see opportunities here for our countries, especially regarding, like I said, job opportunities to be part of this cycle and to offer a sustainable or a circular service or a circular product, always taking into account, like we said, what are you solving? What is the social, what is your consumer or the social issue that you want to solve? And what is the installed capacity in your own country? That's what I wanted to share with you, Gonzalo, from our perspective.
Thank you very much, Antonia. Later we will discuss why probably this is too focused on waste management in terms of circular economy and what other aspects should be included in this circular economy roadmap of Chile. But I am just advancing some questions for the roundtable. Now, I want to introduce you our next speaker, which is going to be Maria Jose Gonzalez. Maria Jose Gonzalez is an environmental engineer. She has more than 18 years of experience in environmental issues, especially waste and energy. She was the executive director of the business organization focuses on comprehensive waste and recycle management. She was the coordinator of the BioValor project, focused on technologies for the recovery of agroindustrial waste, focusing on promoting the circular economy. She is currently working for the Minister of Industry, Energy and Mining in Uruguay in the environmental unit and in the Uruguayan strategy of hydrogen, as well as in circular economy. Maria Jose, thank you for being with us today.
Hello, Gonzalo. Hello, everyone. I will share my screen here. Okay. First of all, I would like to say I really love this image. I think it's beautiful, a lot of meaning, a lot of colors, with the people embracing the nature in the middle. So congratulations for the people who designed this and the idea to use it for this event. I think it's a very good idea.
Was an idea of Caterina.
Okay, Caterina. Great.
Yeah, but I'm not like, I didn't realize it. It's a designer that did it, so.
So it's a really nice one. I said it. I think that if you look it well, it has a lot of message in this image. So okay, it's really a pleasure to be here to share the experience I developed on circular economy with the BioValor project. I would like to share some lessons we learned, but also the challenge that's it's circular economy for Latin America. That's Gonzalo, Caterina told me that they want to have this kind of change. So BioValor project, it's an Uruguayan project that came from the public ministers of industry and energy, also of environment, and also of ganadería, of agriculture. Okay. So that's what one of the first important point is not only environmental minister, but it's three ministers working together for the same objective. I think that's one of the interesting things of this project. But to explain a little bit this, first understand where we come from when we start this project. That Uruguay have already today, and when the project starts, a big change on our power energy mix, in the electricity mix. No? We have today 97%, if we consider the last 4 years, of renewable energy, with also thermal biomass. That's an issue, listening to the professor, but with a lot of wind and also solar and hydro. And the challenge in those moments in 2014 was, okay, now we have already the waste and the agro-industrial waste as an issue to try to develop. But what was interesting when we work on the project is that the project don't only see the energy as a solution, but they understand maybe the energy is not the good solution for the waste management, but we need to see other kind of solution. That's why the project seeks to address the problem of agro-industrial waste generation and its impact to the environment. And in this sense, we make some demonstrative project that could be a good environmental solution, but also business opportunity. And in this moment, we use green economy, but during the project, we understand really what we are doing was circular economy. And we start to work very close to circular economy concepts also. So one aspect I think it's clearly important, and a difference between the story of I think the professor make a very clear introduction and explaining the context, and that is not new, some of the context of circular economy. What I think it's really different, it's the place that redesign have in a circular economy. I think today, and the last decades, we tried to make a circular economy, but we were in a linear economy. No products was designed or processed to return to another cycle. They were designed to be discarded. And that's the difference, I think you need to think and put on value at the beginning, not after we have the problem, but before we have the problem, and redesign all the products to be more, to be after also a business, because today, talking about recycling, about reuse, and it's more expensive than that other kind of solution. But if we change our mindset, that could be really a change. So what I think it's important, I like very much the butterfly diagram of the Ellen MacArthur, but it's come from other concepts before. And I like these two concepts. The technical cycle, I assume everyone already knows this concept. The final objective is to extend service life with different strategy, but the final objective is that. And the biological is how to harmonize the ecosystem with the resource flows. So these two concepts together help us, I think, to find different strategy looking through a circular economy. So some examples that we developed with the BioValor project. If you see in the biological size, here we have a dairy farm with the effluents that be processed in a methanogenic system, no? Anaerobic digestion. And all the biogas they produce is burned and to generate electricity, and they provide they use their energy, and they also provide the surplus to the national electricity grid. Okay, they reuse the water to clean the big parlor, and the energy they produce, they store it in the anaerobic digester to connect it to the grid when the national demand needed. By night, when the energy is more expensive, the national grid recognize you can inject the energy when the country needs it, and they have a better price for this energy. So there is an opportunity business. What's the difference or the delicate aspect of that? That maybe the producer will not have the return on 3 or 4 years. In a natural economy and in today's economy, we want very quickly the return. He will have the returns of the project maybe in 7, 8 years. But for him, it was okay, because we understand I don't need quickly this return. It's not a business, but I will have a return in some point. And of course, all the benefits of the environment, and he's in a place where we have the water, the potable water of the Montevideo, of the capital. So it was very important to have a good management of this effluent. But that's one of the example, look in this. And this project was support with BioValor. Sorry. The other case is Vitana. It's a company that produces wine flavor rich in with a dietary fiber of polyphenols coming from the wine mark. It's a residue, it's a waste from the wine producer. That was before they compost them, but generally they discard this product, and they produce this flour with a lot of nutrients, polyphenols that are concentrated natural super antioxidants. Okay, and there was a particularity. They come from a particular grape that's called Tanat. It's a particular grape here in Uruguay, and that is a flagship from our country, of a wine of our own country. Now it's like Chile, and then that's a Uruguayan one. And they have better concentration of some of these elements, so they can sell and have this product in a good market with a differential value. Okay. And the technology was very simple. It's dry it and molerlo. So it's really, we don't need a lot of technology. Thinking in Latin America now, and the possibility of our producer, we don't have all the resources, but sometimes make circular economy don't need last technology, the most complicated. Sometimes it's change the mindset, understand, and look what we can do with really small action. And going to the technical cycle, for the last example, it's more than an example, it's a concept, no? Is that maybe we can have a lot of issues regarding the repair situation. In our countries in Latin America, we have a lot of people who know how to repair the different elements. And those are jobs that we can recognize the role of the people and we can produce. But we need to improve some of the technologies and the communication they have today. Today, the repair sector there's a lot of problems, and the products are not designed to be repaired, and our country receive the products that import from other sides, so maybe sometimes we don't have the condition to do that. But maybe we can get better information, we can have some issue to help them to be more technological solution, to have better communication from public sector. That's why from a conclusion or element to discuss now, we understand that public policy have an important role to promote circular economy. People decision is important, but we need also public policy. We cannot put all the energy only on the responsibility of the people. The policies are very important for this. So that's why we understand that we need to work to at the same time in this three line, adjust regulation and planning involving different actors, generate knowledge and make alliance with private sector. These two examples are shown today. They receive support from different instruments for the governments, for SME and other, to develop the first projects, to understand the concept, to be the first movers and be examples for the other. If they don't have the support from the state, they will not do it probably. But maybe it will be different to have finance also from the bank. So this kind of solution, and also have a good information to understand the problem, to measure the problem, and also the regulation that help to meaning the 3 times at the same. It's one of the way we understand we need to work, but also looking that it's not only waste management, as we say today. That's why we have an example of water and other kind of solutions that are not only recycling or compost or other kind of things, but look to add more value. And for that, we need more research also, and we need more students that understand and bring solution on this aspect. So thank you. That's what I would like to share with you.
Thank you, Maria Jose. Really a great example of what you have been doing in Uruguay in these issues. I like very much these two ways approach of biological and technical. Later we can go on that. Our next panelist will be Oscar Huerta. I want to introduce Oscar. He's an assistant professor at the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile School of Design. He's a designer from my university, and a PhD in environmental design and planning from Arizona State University, and master in design from the Escuela Superior de Elizaba in Spain. He has conducted research on integrating life cycle analysis with environmentally responsible design in products and processes and process development. He has also been a researcher and a content editor of the Sustainability Consortium in the US. Prior to his specialization in analysis and design for the environment, for the environment and sustainability, he worked for more than 10 years in industrial and product design. Within his academic career, he has been deputy director of the Universidad Católica School of Design. He has also developed research on public space and urban furniture, and taught in the subject of computerized design and manufacturing, geometry, industrial technical drawing, design workshop, and degrees. Thank you, Professor Huerta, for being with us today.
Thank you, Gonzalo, for your introduction. I am going to share my screen. Let me see.
We can see your screen, but we cannot see your presentation.
Yes, I'm just, I have two screens here, so I'm playing with the, what can I show more or less. Now, can you see my presentation?
Yes. Yes,
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, now I'm all set. So I discovered this feature. I used the Google software using the presenter notes. I've never used it before, but now it kind of works. So it's fun. Well, thank you very much for the invitation in the first place, and I'm glad to be here with this audience. And I'm going to show some content I prepared about circular economy and challenges for, well, developing countries and for everybody, actually. Well, the topic of today, you know, closing the circle, integral development, agroecology, and circularity, Latin American and European future challenges. So you have in Europe a long way ahead of us doing these things, and we are kind of catching up at a fast speed here. So it's important to look at where do we want to get, look at the future, where do we need to go? So some of the reflections go in that direction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the circular economy, also acknowledge the contribution of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and some other theoretical foundation of this concept. I'm going to talk a little bit about the relevance of the laws of thermodynamics that has been addressed in the past when talking about circular economy by some theorists. And for last, talk about some challenges for Latin American developing countries and everybody else as well, I think. So we need to say here that maybe the circular economy will not be known at all by everybody if it was not because of Lady Ellen MacArthur, who is here in the picture. She's a retired English sailor and successful solo long-distance jet woman. She broke the world record for the fastest solo circumnavigation of the globe, and then she gained international renown because of this. After a while, she founded the Ellen MacArthur Foundation to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. Since then, the concept of circular economy has gained global attention and adoption by governments and industry. This is not very usual and has not happened in the past with many different approaches that exist to ecological economics or environmental economics or stuff like that. But we have seen this since the EMF Foundation was created, and so I think this is very good for everybody. In her own words, she said, sailing around the world against the clock in 2004, I had the absolute minimum of resources with me to be as light and therefore as fast as possible. At sea, what you have is all you have. Stopping along the way to resupply is not an option, and careful resource management can be a matter of life and death. She said also what you can see here on the screen, which I think is a remarkable phrase. My ship was my world. I was constantly aware of its supply limits. And when I returned to land, I began to see that our world was no different. So this is a beautiful analogy between the ship and the world. I had become very aware of the true meaning of the word finite, and when I applied it to resources in the global economy, I realized that there were great challenges ahead. So what is a circular economy, according to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation? Looking beyond the current take, make, waste, extractive industrial model, which is very well known, concept, a circular economy aims to redefine growth, focusing on positive society-wide benefits. It entails gradually decoupling economic activity from the consumption of finite resources and designing waste out of the system. Underpinned by a transition to renewable energy sources, the circular model builds economic, natural, and social capital. There are many sources of information for the circular economy, and I would say schools of thought or a theoretical foundation includes Pearson Turner, Michael Braungart, McDonough and Branger, Walter Stachel, Janine Benges, concepts of industrial ecology, natural capitalism, blue economy, and regenerative design. I'll talk about some of these things a little bit just to frame the conversation later. We need to say also, and some of you already shown some of the diagrams that come from here, we should acknowledge the contribution of McDonough and Branger cradle-to-cradle approach for the circular economy. We need to say also that the cradle-to-cradle concept was first coined by Walter Stachel, who's here on the right, developing similar ideas at the same time that Branger was working in Germany. So eventually, McDonough and Branger here, they associated and created McDonough-Branger Design Chemistry, a company to help corporations and governments to become more sustainable. And they wrote this book, beautifully written and very interesting and nicely written, compelling. And after you read it, you really, it makes you think and it makes you work for good things. So it's very effective, a very good piece of literature, recommended to everybody who has not read it yet. And this diagram is part of the theory of McDonough and Branger and explains basically the cycles in which materials should be managed in a circular economy. So you can see the right side of the diagram, which is blue, represents the technosphere, let's say, technological cycles of matter. And then the left side, which is green, represents the biological cycles. Well, biological cycles have existed in nature always. And basically, waste does not exist. What is waste for one organism is food or input for another or others. And everything is used. And matter moves in closed cycles, moves, but still remains. Well, based on this comes this analogy of the technical flows, which are represented in blue to the right, and which is basically how can we do something similar to the biological metabolism with technical materials? This is, some of them are natural, some of them are not, but basically technical materials, manufactured materials, processed materials, things that we extract, materials that we extract from the Earth's crust and we prepare in ways that can be used as materials. So they move then in the economy. How can we manage them in closed loops? If you see the diagram here, down here, some things cannot be incorporated to biological cycles or technical cycles. Some stuff just leaks out of the system anyway. So it's shown here. Basically, energy recovery or landfill. This means what we do with things that we don't know how to incorporate to any of these cycles. Well, we dispose of it. Basically, landfilling, burying the materials or burning them to recover the energy. So the idea here is to reduce to the less possible amounts the materials that cannot be incorporated into either of these cycles. Some things anyway come down here and end up in nature, basically. The principles according to EMF for the circular economy are, well, design out waste and pollution. I like very much this because it talks about design, which is the stage where we plan and define in detail stuff that is going to be made afterwards. So when we think, what do we need and what are we going to do to satisfy that, is when we design. The good thing is that if we have these environmental concerns when we design, we can design out some stuff that otherwise may be in our systems and we don't want. Then keep products and materials in use. This is basically the cycles. Every material, hopefully we can use it in cycles. Once it is used for one use, we can use it for another use. It may be the same one or different, or different people using that. But the idea is not to dispose of the materials, but keep using them. And then regenerate natural systems. Well, we've been destroying the natural environment for centuries, and at this point in history, it has happened a lot. We are a lot of people, and we need to regenerate natural systems. Not just take care of what we have, but we need to recover what we have lost as well. And this one I like very much. This is one of the sources as well of information. This is the book Economics of Natural Resources and the Environment, written by Pearson Turner some decades ago. And they actually, I think, coined the term of circular economy in chapter 2 of this book. And they explain several things. There's a lot of mathematics here, and reference from Georgescu Reger as well. But what I like a lot about this piece of literature is the focus they have on the laws of thermodynamics. And this is the main topic, I think, that I'm bringing today for the discussion. The laws of thermodynamics. The first law: energy and matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can just be transformed. We cannot create or destroy matter, actually. We can transform it. And then the second law: energy and matter are subject to entropy, by which they tend to chaos. They tend to disperse, lose quality for usage, and become increasingly unavailable. So these two things happen everywhere. Because the laws of thermodynamics, contrary to social laws, cannot be broken. You cannot not comply with them. Everybody and everything is subject to these laws. So when we're thinking of making a circular economy sustainable, we should think about the laws of thermodynamics. It has some implications that are relevant for us, because the Earth is a closed system for the most part. Matter does not enter or exit significantly. We have lost some matter, space shuttles, satellites, vessels, different kinds of aircraft, spacecraft that we sent, the Hubble telescope, whatever. It's just small amounts of matter that we have sent out of the Earth. This is very small amount. These are very small amounts of matter. And then amounts of matter that have entered the Earth is small as well. Some, once in a while, meteorites, anyway, small amounts of matter. The Earth weighs basically the same since the beginning. Okay. Then at the last second, people, we appeared in the picture in the Earth, and we have been multiplicating and increasing population. The Earth still weighs the same as the beginning. So the amount of matter is the same amount all the time. But energy enters from the sun in huge amounts every day, all the time. And the energy from the sun activates and makes life possible. All the processes in nature are activated by the energy of the sun. That's the energy that they use. So this is how the things are. We are subject to this. We cannot change this. Another thing related to entropy: matter tends to disperse. So there is a characteristic of matter that it has a tendency to disperse. So, for example, tires. This is a very good example, I think. You use new tires. Okay, you use new tires, but after 2-3 years, you need to replace the tires because they don't have the thread anymore. They don't have the drawing. Why the tires don't have the drawing? Well, because the tire has been losing matter over time with use, and the material that was in the tire is not in the tire anymore. Where's that material? It becomes just small particles of rubber and tires dust that are on the streets, on the facades of the buildings. It tends to disperse. Can we recover that? Can we pick up all the pieces of tires that of worn tires? Can we do that? We cannot. It's too expensive. It's too difficult. How can we recover that? So then we have EPRs, extended producer responsibility, which is fine. And in most countries, tires are included. Well, so what remains of the tire can be introduced in a circular economy. But the material that formed part of the tire in the first place is not there anymore. There is a way to recover that. So,
Oscar, I want just to remind you, you can have 1 or 2 more minutes because.
Okay, fine. I'm just finishing. This is the
okay, great.
Almost the last slide. So it tends to disperse. And another thing that is maybe is good to mention, the gravity force. Gravity force. Sometimes we don't think about this. We're just too used that these things are like that. But gravity force. Take a look at the picture. The Earth is round. This is because of gravity force. The same gravity force that keeps here all the pollutants and all the wastes that we produce. It will be still here. Well, challenges for developing countries. Well, everybody, actually, I think. We need to harvest more energy from the sun and rely less on fossil fuels. We have been confronted to this knowledge and working on this for decades. But when we look at the numbers of the productions of extraction of fossil fuels and use in the world, it just increases. So we need to change that. We need to learn better ways to harvest energy from the sun and use it as much as possible. What else? Extended producer responsibility laws are too much focused on waste management. I think it's good to take a systemic view, to adopt a systemic view to understand the problem as a system and then work on different parts of this system in order to minimize the damage or environmental damage or lack of sustainability. So taking a life cycle perspective, I think would be useful for this. For developing countries specifically, we need to solve the lack of local installed capacity to recycle stuff or to reuse or whatever. We need to do something with the waste, and for that we need some technology. In many cases we have it, in some other cases we don't, and in some cases this is a little far away. And also we need to solve the problem of long-distance transport for waste for processing. And I'm not talking here just about transboundary waste exchange. If we put Chile, where I come from Chile, if we put Chile in Europe, it will go from Morocco to Sweden. It's a long country, more than 4,000 kilometers. It would be across all Europe. So, and in Chile, most of the recycling plants that we have are in Santiago, in the center of the country. So residues and waste from the northern Chile and southern Chile will need to travel to Santiago in Chile in order to be recycled. And that's the problem too, because how do you transport that? Well, using trucks that use diesel, fossil fuels. So it's complicated. We need to clean the energy sources basically for everything, but also for transport in order to make this more sustainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oscar, for your presentation. We will follow. We will discuss some of the issues that you have raised in the round panel session. Now I want to introduce our next speaker. It's going to be José Miguel Benavente. José Miguel is currently Principal Lead Specialist in the Competitiveness and Innovation Division of the Inter-American Development Bank. He's also a professor at the business school at the Adolfo Ibáñez University in Chile, and was for more than a decade an academic in the Department of Economics at the University of Chile. His professional work, research, and teaching topics includes areas of economic development, innovation, productivity, research and development, and small medium enterprise, entrepreneurship, and econometrics, among others. He is the author of 100 scientific articles, book chapters, and books on these topics. He has been a columnist for important media, editor of World Science Scientific Journal, consultant for international organizations, and for 10 years, advisor and vice president of the National Innovation Council of Chile. Jose Miguel is an industrial engineer, a civil engineer from Catholic University of Valparaiso, a master in economics from the University of Chile, and also holds the degree of Master of Science and PhD in economics from the University of Oxford in England. Thank you, Jose Miguel, for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Gonzalo. And Gianfranco for the invitation to participate in the very, very interesting seminars. And thank you for everyone in the audience. I'm going to present some of the studies that we've been developing at the Inter-American Development Bank, which is, as already mentioned before, is part of this big picture about, you know, the circular economy. And we are more aware of studying what is going on under what we call green innovation. What is the green innovation about? Why is it relevant? What Latin America is doing about green innovation? And we're not dealing with the whole picture as previously said, but I think it gives some insights and information for those who are more linked with the innovation issues, which in innovation in general is one of the weakest part of the the process of development in Latin America. And when we see on the green innovation, maybe we may have new or open opportunities now that the world is moving in a different and a better direction. I think we're considering another aspect of what will become a more developed country and a more developed society. So mainly what I'm going to present is a few slides about what we're doing about green innovation at the bank, where we're doing some exercises and have an idea about the impact of the green innovation, and the main challenges, especially seen from the public policy side, which may help governments to put this on set up more explicit and more clear for not only for the private sector, which I agree have a very important role to play, but also from the public side and the coordination problems. And normally we expect and we see, at least in the cases what we've seen in Latin America, about to promote green innovation and a few other related areas concerning circular economy. So this is mainly and I'm gonna present what we have so far move in that direction. I don't know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, yeah. Perfect. We can see.
Okay, great, lovely. So mainly, I'm sorry, it's in Spanish, but I would try to do my best in considering my terrible English. But mainly, we have followed the definitions by the European Commission about what is green innovation. And you have several synonyms compared to, say, innovation, eco-innovation, environmental innovation, or sustainable innovation. And mainly, we agreed with the definition about, every form of innovation that creates opportunity for business. And I think we are very consistent with the broad definition of innovation, which is related with business, which may have a beneficial effect on the environment and also towards to reduce the impact on the environmental, or to optimize or put more efficient the use of resources in terms to put less stress on the environmental side. So this green innovation as a concept includes the creation and the commercialization of new technologies which have they're more friendly with the environment,
which compared to other alternatives. I mean, energy is one very clear example that's already been raised here, but you have several others related with the food industry, related with the standard manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. But also innovation includes the diffusion and adoption of new technologies, which are more ecologically friendly from the companies. And this is very important because even using the Schumpeterian approach about innovation, diffusion and adoption is a very, very important issue and a very important activity on those countries who are lagging behind in the technological frontier, which is the case in Latin America. And I think that that's a relevant aspect, not only to produce new technology in-house for the first, but also to adapt and to diffuse this technology all around the society. And the third one, this concept includes, the environmental benefit that may have an active goal for some, hopefully all of the firms in our countries. So we're using mainly, and I'm sorry about the words, I'm very small, but I try to explain a few examples. We're using the framework of innovation, which have been pushed by especially the OECD countries, separating between what we call products innovation, especially related with green innovation, and then the wide view about processes, which include productive processes, organizations, and marketing. And what I'm showing here are a few examples of these four kinds of innovations. And these are very important when you separate, for example, in terms of product innovation related with green innovations. And this can be, standard processes that coming from, in industrial production, but also it's related with construction in terms of building, which is, what we call green building or building. Also technologies of generation, which includes, for example, energy generation. And I think on the panel, we can discuss a lot of the Chilean experience about, green hydrogen, which have been a very, very important policy, pushed by this current government. But I think in the future, and Latin American countries, especially Chile, and I think Uruguay also have a lot of advantages here. But also this includes process innovation. That means mainly saying that you're still producing what you already produced, but the way you produce is more eco-friendly. And this also have a lot of challenges in terms, an adoption and creation of new knowledge and to do that in a proper way. And then you have another kind of innovation, which you call management organization or organizational green innovation, which is related with what's already been raised about, norms and also regulation, how firms may adapt or incorporate norms to in a certain way give signals to the final markets or the consumers or citizens at large, that they are fulfilling all the processes and the way they produce are economic, are friendly with the environment. Sometimes it's hard to see when you only see the product. So in a certain way, you can give, clear signals that the way you're producing is friendly with the environment. This is very important. And this is also related with marketing. Chile, we have pushed a lot of different strategy marketing in terms of, how you packed, the products in a certain way which are economic friendly, and also that can be recycled. All this green design, which is related with the products and services, all this is incorporated in this pillar. So mainly here are a few examples, and I'm going to leave the presentation for those who are interested to see some examples about, different kinds of green innovations separated between product, process, managerial, and also marketing. So why this is very important, and not only, as I have been, said before, that the green innovation also have an impact, and it's not only an ethical issue, which is itself, it's a very important motive, but also you have several impacts from the incentive side, as normally we as economists tend to see all these processes. In a certain way, guarantees certain provision of resources that which are friendly with the environment, and not only for this generation, but also for the next generations, our sons and our grandsons, they are asking for this kind of improvement have to be done as soon as possible, because in a certain way they inherit a world which is different than the one we inherit from our parents and grandparents. The second one is that the green innovation is creating new markets, we will say, in as economists, of technology services, which it creates a certain engines of growth that creates new employment, especially when we are facing now all the automation, all the challenges that are coming from the digital. But here, the green innovation also may open up new opportunities for new kind of skills and complementarities with standard manufacturing and other kind of services, which have this particular, consistency with environment. And also, it's a clear element to minimize, the cost for the economy and to change in a certain way to a model of a development model which is more consistent and friendly with environment, not only, as I said, for current times, but also for future times. When you see, and this is part of the work we have done using some data from OECD and other fields, when you see the change in technologies, and you separate between technology which are in a certain way related with the environment and others we are not directly consistent with the environment in the last 10 years, you see that this is a very interesting that you see a movement towards more environmental friendly technologies, and this is a part good news. Probably the pace or the rate that this movement is not as fast as we would like, but in a certain way, the direction of most of the countries is a good one. Some also figures show that this is a very profitable business and is creating a lot of value added and has also created a lot of jobs. These are certain figures coming from the European Commission, the World Economic Forum, and the World Bank, showing that today the economy, the green innovation side and the green is still is growing. It's still very small. It contributes between 2 and 3% of GDP, and certain countries larger. But we hope in the future this will be increased. And I think part of the challenge is how to increase the rate, increase the rate of this kind of growing, because the nature is not waiting. And as already Oscar was saying, this is a very complicated and making a lot of challenges. For example, some of the ways we see the effort that countries are pushing in saying environmental friendly research and development activities, at least in countries in Latin America, are still very low. With the exception of Colombia, the few other countries, including Chile, is less than 10% of the research and development resources in Latin America are very, very low, are very small. But consider that the percentage that is allocated in environmental issues is still very low as well. So it's a challenge for our countries. Say, for example, Chile and a few others like Mexico and Argentina investing less than 10% in R&D in issues related with the environment. Also, the kind of patents or the kind of inventions that are related with green issues is still very low as well. This, with the exception of Chile, which is more related with energy, green energy, solar, and a few others. The rest also are patenting as a result of the effort of new research and development. Is also very, very, very low for our standards. So what we're trying to do at the IDB is to, in a certain way, try to see what's going on in the countries related with the green innovation. Again, we are not dealing with and attacking the whole circular economy, but also one little aspect of it, which is related to what are countries, especially firms and governments, are doing in terms of promoting green innovation. And we've done this. We started with Argentina a couple of years ago, doing some identify, the actors and agencies who are related with this. This is not very easy, but because the way it's organized, the ecosystem is not the way related with green directly. We interview several people, policymakers, etc. And mainly as a result, despite the fact they have done, as I've already shown, some very good improvements, one of the problems that we in a certain way, we collect from the data and from the interviews, that first there's a institutional problems related with the promotion of green innovation and environmental issues in general. It's not very clear who is responsible of doing this. Some ministers related with environment, but also you have the State Agency of Science and Technology to promote new knowledge and to push, there's a lot of problems with the regulation issues already been raised. And the policies to promote science and technology are very horizontal, so they're not very focused on the green innovation areas, which is not only a problem in Argentina, but also in several other countries in Latin America. And also, as already been said, the capacities are inside the firms to promote this kind of activities are very, very weak in terms of not only infrastructure and money, but also skills coming from the people. So this is a challenge for the future if we want to push, the green innovation activities. And mainly what we're trying to, in a certain way, to make a taxonomy of what is behind the green innovation is not only, as I already said, technological capacity, but also the market makes a lot of effect, competition. And also that very, very interesting point that was raised by Professor Sobeli is related with the consumption, activities and consumption preferences. This is very important, related with what we call demand pull issues, how the consumption is in a certain way aware about this and how it's considered in terms of price differentials, while, demanding certain products, we are more greener. Regulatory effects that will really speak. So all this, and also location is very important. Countries are very different. Latin America is full of natural resources everywhere. So it's a very complicated issue. Uruguay and Chile also is very interesting in terms of new energies compared to, say, other countries who already have a lot of, carbon-based fuels. And finally, I'm finishing with a few instruments of what we call to promote innovation in general, but also especially in green innovation. You normally have the supply side mechanism. That is, say, for example, what we call the financial instruments nowadays. Green bonds and a few others are very interesting in this area, but also to promote research and development in the green, and also the human capital formation in environmental issues is very relevant, and this is lacking in Latin America in general. From the demand side, also it's very important regulations, especially price issues or taxes on what we call green tax or CO carbon taxes. This is also, for example, in Chile, we know that what was called the shadow price of the ton of carbon is around $32, $33 per ton. But the carbon tax in Chile is $5. So the mismatch between the shadow price and the current taxes on carbon is very wide. And hopefully in the future this have to be close this gap. And also very systemic point of this is not only in green innovation, but also in general innovation that we call systemic, what we call the ecosystem, related with the innovation. This is a few examples that are in terms of policies to promote green innovation, in terms of incubation of green firms, fiscal incentives for R&D in green activities, vouchers from the demand side, and I'm going to leave the presentation for those who are interested. Probably you already know of some of them, but these are cases that are already ongoing in several, especially European countries, where we can learn a lot about the good and the bad related with the experience of these countries in terms of promotion of green innovation. So thank you very much for the invitation. This is very, very fast. I know that, but probably for the comments and questions, we can go through the panel. Thanks again, Gonzalo, for the invitation.
Thank you very much, José Miguel. Really interesting this point of view, because also we had one of the presentation on the previous days that stressed the importance of the development banks in this kind of issue. So I think you have addressed many different topics that we can discuss later. Thank you very much for that. Our last presentation is going to be done by Gonzalo del Castillo. I'm introducing Gonzalo del Castillo. He's a graduate in political science, member of La Ciudad Posible, which is a very interesting organization who works in different cities of Latin America. He's director of the Argentinian chapter of the Club of Rome and of the Center of Sustainability for Local Governments. Thank you, Gonzalo, for being with us. We cannot hear you.
No,
I don't know.
no. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, now we can.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. At first, it will be very, very difficult for me to add something of value after hearing all the past speakers. So I will do my best, but I have to start saying that my English is a little bit rusty. So if you don't understand something, just sorry for this. But again, I will try to do my best. And of course, before I start, I want to thank you very much for inviting us today to share with you some of the experience we have in our field, and also about some of our ideas about how to get to something like integral development, if that is even possible, considering the times we are living right now in the world. Very briefly, I will preview what I am going to be sharing with you. The presentation will start with a very big part with a more theoretical and contextual to explain, or trying to explain, integral development and the circular economy in particular, and much more than this, trying to explain why we are talking about integral development and circular economy in the particular context of, I insist, the current state of the world and our country, in particular in Argentina, in where it becomes increasingly more necessary and even urgent to think of innovative and regenerative models that must be completely different than those we have been using, at least during the last 15 years. Well, to try to analyze this, the first things I want to add or to analyze is that our current society, and I guess we all agree with this, has like never before in history infinite scientific data which points to the series of our global crisis. We know perhaps that never before that our actions are bringing the planetary system on the border of ecological collapse. We are going through the 6th extinction mass generated by our own flood system. And we also know that we have at least few years more, no more than 10 or 8 years, according to science, to prevent warnings from becoming a terrifying reality of runaway climate change. And what is even more, or even more worst, is that we do not only have the path of destruction we are carrying out, but we also have at our disposal almost all the knowledge in terms of resources, in terms of intellectual, economic, and material, and even technological knowledge to trying to avoid this scenario. And yet, even if we know what we know, even when we have all the information and all the technology that we already talked in the past with the past speakers, we cannot act. We cannot give the step we have to give to try to avoid this scenario. Just to emphasize on this, 26 conferences of the party have passed, and we continue to move away each year from the goal of reducing CO2 emissions. This is a well-known reality for all, and more than 50 years have passed since the Club of Rome warned its limit to growth, this report of the year 1972, that it was absurd and even suicidal to propose or even to think infinite development in a planet that is by definition finite. This is well-known truth for all. So here I bring, of course, only some of the most relevant reports and information from different scientific organizations, both academic and social, and even also religion. We were talking also about the Laudato Si and the advertisement that the Pope gave us to all of us. And all these reports that are free to access by Google only reinforce the obvious knowledge. And this is that we are taking I insist, suicidal path that puts the very existence of the human species at risk, and not only the human species, but the entire life at a whole. So with this first idea, the obvious question we would be, or we would ask ourselves, or we should ask ourselves, is why? So why, with such a clear diagnosis, with such a clear problem identified, why we cannot act? Why we cannot reverse the path of destruction we are on? And also, we should ask what is the challenge we can identify that points to why alternative models such as the circular economy or the regenerative development of many other schools that also the other speakers have talked about have not yet become mainstream. And perhaps one of the graphic that here I am bringing that help us to understand this is that the model by which growth is measured and even how we analyze the development is not helping at all to try to solve this problem. So briefly, if we analyze the growth tendencies over the last 70 years, we are going to realize that many of these growth indicators are still used by much of the developing world to validate the system and indicate that in reality, we are not doing the things so bad. Essentially, because there have been substantial and also undeniable improvements in many areas. And what are those improvements? Well, from 1950 till now, when what is known as the Great Acceleration begins, many of the indicators linked to growth and development gave very positive results. For example, here you can see in the left part of the screen, the population growth, the growth of GDP per capita, the consumption of water, the production and consumption of many different materials, food, the number of people who came out of extreme poverty, the telecommunication, the production of large dams, the urban population, and many, many other indicators. And among others, for example, the access to improved sanitation services, that is in itself a very, very, very important issue that permit us to evolve as a civilization. These are all indicators that the system used to justify that even if there are some unintended impacts, the model was able to sustain itself. And this idea prevailed for several decades. But in order to do so, in order to prevail, it had to set aside all the indicators that represent all the negative externalities of our development model. And what are these negative externalities? Well, everything that you will see on the right side of your screen, these are the trends and impacts that all these positive indicators have had on ecological variables, on the Earth system trends. We can see that while there was population growth, increase in life expectancy, the escape of million or even million of people from extreme poverty, there were also a counterpart, unequal increases of greenhouse gas emissions, of the destruction of jungles, of native trees, goods, extinction of biodiversity, and many other negative impacts, which I insist you can see in the screen. However, despite all of these supposed negative impacts, the model is based again on the basic idea that it has managed to lift billions of people out of extreme poverty. It has achieved more than 5 times the GDP in real terms. It has managed to advance in some of the most clearly human goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. If not, just take a look at this graph. Sorry, it is in Spanish. I didn't find it in English, but you can see that we have managed to drastically avoid or to reduce the avoidable death of children under the 5 years of age. We made progress toward the goal of ending hunger in the world. We also advancing a lot in the goal of achieving universal access to drinking water. And we have many, many other achievements thanks to our current model. And it is true. But while this is true, that if you look at the right side of the graph, you will see that practically all of the indicators linked to environmental and ecological issues, such as, for example, reduce of global warming, improve water quality, stop the loss of biodiversity, and so on, you can see that in all these indicators, we are going in the opposite direction of the goal. But even if this is true, in the purely human goals, the current model says we are improving. And that is true. We are improving. We are much more better than a few decades before. But we should, or we should ask ourselves, what does this approach hide? What is the problem? What is hiding this approach? Well, we believe in something like that. There is like a fundamental problem is that although the sustainable development goals, all the sustainable development goals are essential, the truth is that some of these goals are much more essential than others. Basically, because some are a condition of possibility for the others. I mean, in other words, if we fail in some of the goals which are more essential, this will indefinitely impact on the others and will inevitably fail the system as a whole. And the question, obvious question is, what are those objectives that are condition of possibility for others? Well, justly all those in which right now we are failing outright. That is, all those linked to the care and protection of nature as itself and natural system. We are failing, you can see at the right part of your screen, how we are going in this indicator. Therefore, when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, instead of presenting them as if they all have similar weight, as we used to present the Sustainable Development Goals, we should present them in a totally different way. In a way that clearly reflects that on the basis of the goal, on the basis of all the goals, we should place all those objectives that are directly linked to the safeguarding of natural ecosystem, to the need to activate the action of climate action, to the safeguarding of marine life, and with the clear consciousness that without all these goals, all the other economic or social objectives would be impossible to sustain in the long term, even if things currently seems okay today or tomorrow, as we have already seen in the before images. In the medium term or in the long term, it will begin to do tremendously bad. And this is a very rational thing that Oscar already told us when we talk about the thermodynamic laws. Indefinitely, we are making or we are advancing in a suicidal way of thinking the development. That is why we think we have to problematize the conceptual basis of the development model and how we can understand what is the integral development. Okay, as a result, in the context, it is necessary and it is obvious to think, design, and create growth model that could disengage the economic growth of consumption of resources, a model able to separate human well-being from the use and destruction of natural and, of course, of nature. In other words, we must find ways to integrally develop ourselves, and we need to define what is integrally develop ourselves as a human beings without destroying nature, under the basic premise that destroying nature is exactly the same as destroying ourselves. This is one of the most important ideas we would like to share from the space we conform. It's exactly the same. Destroying the nature is destroying human beings. It's the same under the idea of unity. And that is why it's very important to put again on value the cosmologics of, for example, original people of Latin American countries. It is really incredible that we have to say something so obvious, but in light of the current situation, I insist, in which we are destroying the overall climate and leading to extinction of more than 1 million species, this according to the IPBES report, I believe that it is even more necessary than ever before. And in short, the fact is that in this attempt to avoid and fight against collapse, the circular economy, of course, can help us to consider and design different alternatives. It is very, very, very simple idea, and the first instance of the circular economy have been already said also in the table, but it's based on a very, very, very simple idea to stop having a linear look at production and consumption model in which we continually extract resources from nature to convert them into products that we later dispose of in form of waste that cannot be reused by nature, and try to move to a circular model in which emulating the functioning of nature, this is the most important idea, emulating nature, we manage to maintain the value of these resources through their constant and sustained reuse, reintroducing and converting all the byproducts of our process into useful inputs to production of new products and services, thus thus avoiding the generation of negative externalities produced by our own current system and multiplying in the process the economic, environmental, and social capital. Of course, in this process, the circular economy approach, because, and this is why we're working more, it becomes even much more important, and particularly important in cities, since in urban areas these are both great opportunities as well as great challenge and impact associated, of course, with climate change and the ecosystem crisis. On the one hand, cities generate 80% of GDP, and also their diversity of inhabitants allows for the growth, for example, of art, science, and citizen participation. And also in the cities is where we can allow for creativity to flourish and find innovative solutions, such as all that Jose has already said, also related to green innovation. So we have a very good news about cities that has all this potential. However, at the same time, cities are the ones that generate the highest amount of global CO2 emissions. I guess we already know about this. And also are responsible for consuming more than 60% of material and energy resources, again, breaking the laws, the thermodynamical laws that Oscar has already said. And at the same time, basically because the cities concentrate the most part of the population at the global level, and this will be even worse in the next decades, they will be the ones that suffer the most from the direct impacts of climate change. And this trend in particular is especially more challenging in Latin American countries, and in particular in our country, in Argentina, where, for example, more than 95% of the inhabitants live in urban areas. We have the record in this in Argentina. I don't know, Palestina perhaps, and I don't know, Liechtenstein perhaps, but we are in the top of the ranking. And now, with this background in context and in mind, I would like just to share you in a short few lines what do we do from the La Ciudad Posible. At first, we conform a collaborative platform to create and apply new development model that inspire, and I insist in this idea, inspired by the functioning of nature and circular economy, managed not only to reduce negative impacts, we are on the age of regeneration, not just the mitigation of impact, but the regeneration of the ecosystems. And we also work to repair, insisting in this idea, repair and regenerate degraded ecosystems. In this sense, we work with similar project than the one that Maria Jose, I guess, talk about the project they are working in Uruguay. We work together with national, provincial, and local governments, developing comprehensive circular economy and bioeconomic plans. For example, with the province of Santa Fe, we are working in the development of circular economy plan for the whole province. We work together with various public, private, and civil society actors to promote, for example, the largest and more important campaign for the planting and adoption of native trees in Argentina, promoting the conservation and regeneration of native forests, putting again in the center of the idea of developing the revinculation with nature and the regeneration. And we promote also specific project to design and develop cities that operating in a circular way, that means operating in a way that emulate nature, aim to achieve water, energy, and food self-sufficiency in their territories. But beyond the specific examples, what we promote and what we really wanted to share with you today is much more like a different way to think about development. And that starts from a much simpler idea than we might imagine. And this idea is that the problems we are facing today as a global society with climate change as the main planetary challenge have their main origin in the broken bond between human beings and nature. In this process, in this process of separation and broken the unity with nature, we stop feeling like a part of nature, of course, and in doing so, we forget how nature works. And how nature works? Well, as a first input of the work, the nature always achieving to diversify life and value. Life and value in some way are the same thing, and nature always diversify the value. So if we return with humility, basically humanity, abandon the sovereign of our human knowledge, to see the nature, to our gaze to nature, to learn from it, accepting the limits that it imposes on us, the one that already Oscar told about, and returning to be governed by the principles that regulate nature, that are very simple principles that the ecology already knows since decades and decades, we will be able to correct, if not all, at least a large part of the problems that we currently have. But it requires to have a different way to understand the development, and even more, a completely different way to analyze and to live also the relation with nature. And that is why we believe it is very, very important to put in value the knowledge of other cosmologies that has a completely different relation with nature. So thank you very much for the invitation to share with you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. It's a really good work that you are doing in Ciudad Posible. Probably we will talk a little bit more about that. I want to ask you to stop sharing so we can see each other. Thank you very much. For the roundtable that we're going to have right now, I want to introduce two members of the scientific committee of the symposium that have been part of the organization. Caterina Rondoni, who has been the engine for this symposium. She's a PhD student in environmental sustainability and well-being of the University of Ferrara, political scientist, specialist in human rights and environmental rights. And she has done a lot of things and been really, really important for the organization and the idea of this symposium. And I also want to introduce Professor Gianfranco Franz, which is pretty much known for almost all of you. So, and he's a professor at the University of Ferrara in the departments of economic and management, and urbanist, and I think with a long career of international collaboration between universities. So we're going to start this roundtable, and I also want to address the issue that we have a lot of PhD students of the program, the PhD program on environmental sustainability and well-being. So probably some of them will want to have to ask some questions, and we will have that opportunity for that too. So maybe Caterina, I think you have one question for Professor Soboli, and then we can go on with the next round of questions. Also, if any one of the panelists wants to add a question for another one, that's also an option, so you can speak freely if you want. Caterina.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Hello, Professor. I really appreciate your approach to the idea of the grandmother concept of circularity, but I would like to know, in your opinion, which are the main differences between the grandfather's concept of circularity, at least the European one, and this new idea of circularity that we are talking about today and we are trying to using to change a bit the paradigm. Thank you.
Yes, well, there is a big difference, of course, that I mentioned my grandfathers as the roots of an approach to circularity and closed cycle, which is based on a principle, moral principle and parsimony, and the culture they had. I think that we can retain this approach in terms of cultural roots and attitudes. Of course, the circular economy today in Europe is something completely, much broader. It's an industrial paradigm based on green innovation as much as possible. Okay, we have a flourishing of entrepreneurial ideas. We are speaking every day of new business model based on circularity. This is understood as a new frontier by almost all industries. They perceive the possibility of benefits of profitable businesses from closing the loop, at least to save resources in terms of process innovation, or to provide new products that can have a good market. Okay. So everything is pushing in this direction. There are a lot of actors investing in the circular economy in Europe. I can mention the big player of energy. Can give you the example of Eni, the biggest energy company in Italy. They are investing about 1 billion in circular economy, especially to get unconventional biofuels from waste. This is an example. But there was a number of business business idea on the ground. The possible problem with these businesses is that we are not sure, or is not completely sure, or we don't have a complete evidence that these new businesses are fully profitable and sustainable. Give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I participated to a commission of a contest for master students in agricultural sciences, providing ideas on how to exploit agricultural waste to produce new chemicals and new products. There was an incredible range of possibilities they demonstrated from a technical point of view, but they were, for the most part, unable to demonstrate the economic feasibility of these ideas, which can be understandable for students. But the problem is that we have the same problem with businesses. For new companies undertaking this kind of new businesses. So we should expect that, in spite of this flourishing of ideas, we will have a rate of failures, which is a sort of natural thing in innovation, as you know. We cannot expect that every innovation will be successful and provide a stable new business. And this is the micro dimension of economic opportunities. But I would like to point out another issue I see in the development of the circular economy. We have a lot of expectations on the creation of employment and value added at the macro level. This is the narrative of the European Commission. This is a new industrial paradigm, creating new opportunities for jobs and value added. It is true, but when we are in the framework of an economic system, we have to take into account of the substitution effect. If you take a large part of circular businesses are a sort of substitution economy, and so not necessarily we have to expect a net macroeconomic benefit from the development of the circular economy. We can expect a very good environmental impact because we are saving resources, emission, and so on. And we can expect also international spillovers. I give you the example of the German paper industry. If you take the development of this industry in terms of input and feedstocks, they switched from importing paper pulp from foreign countries, and they pointed to the domestic flow of waste paper. There has been a big substitution at the expenses of international trade of primary commodities. So we must be aware also of this international spillover of a circular economy, which is in general is inward looking. to the domestic resources.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sopoli. You have addressed an important, really important issue of this replacement of jobs and materials. So probably we will have an international situation on that that could be really important to address. Professor Gianfranco, do you want to ask some questions to some of the?
Yes, thank you very much, Gonzalo. And Gonzalo, I suggest that there are some persons in the room, and they are from mostly from Brazil, from Curitiba. If they have questions, please, we can, of course, we are happy about their intervention. Eventual intervention. I have one question for José Miguel Benavente and one for Gonzalo del Castillo. I would have many questions, but the first one for José Miguel Benavente. You were speaking about, of course, the action of the International Latin American Bank, and you were speaking about green innovation and eco-innovation for business, of course. My question is, are you thinking in a sort of finance innovation supporting not only existing companies for their transition to the circular economy, circular production, but supporting directly startup of young entrepreneurs who are naturally eco-friendly oriented. I think it could be not only because I'm teaching at the university, but I think that a very good action would be to support directly the young capabilities in producing eco-innovation and the green innovation, and then the competition of the younger could promote the transformation or the transition of the older or the traditional companies. And for Gonzalo del Castillo, my question is, you were interestingly linking the idea of circular economy with the concept of integral development. That is our goal, in fact. And you were asking why we cannot act. I have some ideas about it, and I know, because I was looking for this. I know that Ciudad Posible has a wide catalog of action, etc. And you were just rapidly explaining, just summarizing it. It could be interesting for us to understand where do you find, for instance, money and funds just to promote, and if you do that with the citizens and people living in the cities in which you are working. Thank you very much.
Gonzalo, should I take the first one?
Sí, José Miguel.
My answer, as you prefer. My answer is very short. So as you prefer, Jose.
Go ahead, Gonzalo. Go ahead, please.
No, briefly, we are working with different kind of financial organizations. We have many projects working with local governments, the municipalities of Argentina. We are also working with entities of the national governments, and also many projects are being developed together with enterprises, big, medium, or large enterprises from different kinds of profiles. So we try to find the correct ally to develop each one of this project, and has like different dimension of implication, because we have some projects at provincial level, another that just work in a very specific area. For example, making regeneration of small park or something like that. So it's abroad and very, very amplio. How do you say amplio? But
amplio.
Okay.
We have the same language.
Okay.
I'm sorry. For the European, Argentina is a federal state, and when they say provincial, they are intending statal. This is important because for us in Italy, province is a very small scale.
Oh, great.
No, you're welcome.
That was the problem I told you about my English.
No, that's perfect. Okay, thank you, Gonzalo. Jose Miguel.
Thank you, Gianfranco, for your question. Well, supporting startups have been a very important goal from the IDB in the last 10 years or 15 years, I would say. And nowadays, we have done this through two main channels. The first one is maybe you have heard about what is called BidLab, the former FOMIN, which is a program that goes directly supporting firms, especially the startups in Latin America, and putting money, seed money, and participate in the property of some of these firms, which they have some new radical innovation propositions or few actions like that side. But most of our effort have been focused on supporting the public side, say institutions like Corfo in Chile, which is very relevant, the ANI in Uruguay, BNDES and few others in Brazil, that mainly through the public side, supporting startup programs. But one of the characteristics of these programs have been mainly neutral in terms of technology and in terms of sectors, which I think is becoming more relevant, that, and we're moving a little bit in that direction, that we are pushing the idea that part of this support have been more focused or target. As part of the vision of the bank 2025, the environmental one is a very relevant one. So we are pushing the agenda that in the support from the public side to startups in Latin America, the green issues have been be put more clear and in more important side compared to other ones. So now the bank is pushing those governments that they need support from our side to go deeply in more sectorial issues and more related, for example, as you already mentioned. And this is consistent with what you are saying. And as we see, as figures have shown, that startups are the ones who are mainly created value in the whole sense of the word, and also creating employment of a different kind that are more consistent and target through, for example, sustainability and environmental issues. So this is part of the bank that is moving in these years, and without any doubt will be in that direction in the following ones, because it's consistent with its vision until 2025. So thank you for the question. We're really, really open for the suggestions that are coming from your side. We're doing some research, as already shown, from Argentina, supporting Chile and Uruguay and a few other ones for those countries who are pushing the idea, not only of startups, but those who are more technically based and more focused on environmental issues.
Thank you very much, Jose Miguel. Also because more than 10 years ago, we were working with FOMIN and in Brazil with Sebrae and Alagoas. So I didn't know about these recent activities of this. And sorry, there is Isule Filho from Curitiba, if I'm remembering correctly. He is asking you if you can repeat the name of the funding source, but Isule, you can speak directly.
I think it's FOMIN. I put it on the chat. Yeah, it's FOMIN, which is so it's okay. Thank you. Antonia wants to say something, but first I want to ask her or remind her the question that I already asked. She mentioned, Antonia, you mentioned sometimes that the circular economy roadmap of Chile is more extremely focused on waste. What are the things that are missing there? What are the other things that you will add in this circular economy roadmap for Chile? Antonia.
Okay, I raised my hand because I wanted to share with you that recently in the Chilean Plastic Pact, we had a meeting with all our members, and we spoke about a transversal preoccupation that we all have, and it is related to investigation, to startups, right, to research. And we told our members and the companies to not be scared to use what is available to them. And what is available to them, to be really practical, is the tax incentive law. I am not an expert in tax incentive law, but what I can share with you, that it allows Chilean companies that carry out research and development activities and that are not top-notch taxpayers to improve their competitiveness through tax benefits of more than 50% of their expenses associated with research and development projects, certified by Corfo. Corfo is the corporation for, if I'm correct, for the promotion of production. That is the translation. So I just wanted to share that with you, because we have said that to them. Don't be scared, use this, and also be prepared that you will for sure need to, as we say, put your hand in the pocket and also have to do more research and development in your own industries or enterprises to have a more circular economy way. I'm thinking always, remember, of plastic packaging, but of course, with the laws that are in place in Chile, they need to move fast. Not only because in the pact we have very strict goals, but we have an EPR law, and recently a single-use plastics law that is very also very fast in implementation. Sorry, you can hear my daughter screaming at the back. I'm trying to focus, but I'm multitasking. And for your question, Gonzalo, what is missing? I don't feel prepared to tell you what is missing. I am prepared to tell you how I see this developed, or why it is more focused on waste management. And that is because we have to think where, or when I teach, what I say is, where do you put circular economy if we're thinking of the 2030 agenda of United Nations, right? Where is circular economy in the 17 SDGs? And how I see it is, if you double click on SDG 12, right, of sustainable consumption and production, Chile has a national program on sustainable consumption and production. This was written in 2015. And in 2015, if you double click on that program, there are 12 lines of action, and one was waste management. And in those years, we already wrote that if we wanted to achieve a correct waste management, we needed to incorporate eco-design and circular economy, 2015. So we were already linking waste management there in the Sustainable Consumption and Production Program. And therefore, when as you know, governments change and they take some of the programs that were already written, I see it as a logical way to continue waste management, then to speak of circular economy, which is, of course, more complete, right? More complete. And I would say, yes, it is very concentrated in not producing waste, right? Or the waste hierarchy. But I would say that something that needs to be more focused is probably the regeneration of natural systems, right? Because you have the three aims, as all the professors have shown. So not to have any contamination, pollution from the design. If you have material, keep them in circulation as most time as you can. And thirdly, regenerate, right? Regenerate. So I think we are very focused maybe on the first two, and the third one needs to be pushed a bit faster. It's not that it's not incorporated, at least in the circular economy roadmap, it is not stated as per se as regeneration, but this is something that I know the Ministry of the Environment is working on in a separate way, and also from Fundación Chile, there's also initiatives regarding water that are very interesting regarding how to regenerate using or imitating our natural systems, right? So that's more or less what I wanted to share, or how I would answer this.
Thank you very much, Antonia. Professor Soboli, you want to comment something about the same topic? Professor.
Yeah, very briefly. In spite of the very broad view we have in Europe about the circular economy, also inspired by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, if you go through the action plan for the circular economy, you find clearly that the core is made of waste policies. There is, of course, something more on design, product design, which is linked to the directive on product design. There is something about useful life, which is a very, very important topic in the European perspective. But in essence, the action plan is towards the waste world. So not very different or very innovative with respect to conventional approaches.
Thank you, Professor Soboli. I want to share a couple of questions more. I don't know. I'm going to say it, and then I will leave the. I will stop speaking. One for Maria Jose. In your presentation, you mentioned the importance of public policies and regulations for being able to address some of our goals in this. So, what do you think are the regulations we need to change, or we need to make for being able to address these goals in public policies and regulations?
Thank you, Gonzalo, for the question. I will answer your question and make a comment also, more a question, or I thought about the other answer. I think we have a lot of possibility in public policy to promote circular economy in the different countries. First of all, for example, here in Uruguay, the investment promotion law have a big importance for the investment on renewable energies in our country. There's one of the efforts made from the state that have a very good results in transformation. So I think that's one example. But also regulation, for example, if you want to use organic matter after as a compost, but you have to set the condition to have security for the users after, and could certify the quality of reused products that are manufactured, or also organic matters and reuse the contents of nutrients, have some safety issues regarding these alternatives and good condition. I think it's very important also for the consumer can trust in this solution and adopt this kind of solution, for example. I think very interesting the case in France of Repair Labeled. They are implementing that you can, as you have efficiency label in products today, energy efficiency label. You can do it also to know how efficiency is a product in the resource use, or how much repair you can have of this product. I think this kind of information also can make change in the companies after, because they change the way they produce also if the consumer change the way they consume. So we need to match that, and I think public policy can have a role there in public compras públicas, in buying from the public government also. It's a very important motor of change, because the companies want to be provided a supplier for the state. So there's some examples, but I think we can have a lot more. But all the support of the startups in this, they made in Corfo, but also in Uruguay with Programa Oportunidades Circulares. These kind of issues are also ways to support this. And I would like to ask, or For example, in the case of waste to fuel that Professor Roberto was talking about Italy, if this waste have plastic, we are producing again a fuel with fossil fuels. So this kind of solution in a circular economy condition have sense if we change also, we redesign the products that are after waste. So the plastic, for example, from different origins or different conditions. Because if not, okay, we are recycling or we are transforming fuels, that's very good, but we are not doing the decarbonize objective 2050, because this kind of fuel will be a problem because we have plastics and so we have emission in the use of this kind of fuel. So we have to think in all the solution, also the kind of input or the resources go to this kind of solution. And that's why I think circular economy is interesting. There is a new aspect here, because if you only look, okay, I take the waste and transform on a fuel, that's good, it sounds very good. But behind that, we still have the problem of the raw material going to this fuel. Comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Jose. I'm going to ask one question for Oscar. There's a question on the chat. I wonder if you can read it, all the panelists, from Professora Maria Alessandra Wilson from University of Vermont. So maybe some of you want to comment on that question later. Oscar, I just want to address two things for you that you mentioned in your last slide. The need for a more systemic view. You mentioned that it's too much focus on the waste management that we have been talking about, and there's a need for a more systemic view on this. And the idea of the lack of local installed capacity. How would you address these two issues, or how we can go for a more systemic view in this, and how we can address the necessity for capacity at local level?
Thank you for the question. I think that the systemic view can provide a way of understanding that things are interrelated, and the efforts that we can pursue for circular economy, sustainability, everything, the green engineering, industrial ecology, green chemistry, etc. Sometimes we see solutions, but these solutions may not be solutions if they are implemented in ways that are not sustainable. For instance, let's say we have here an extended producer responsibility law, which focuses on 6 priority products. Well, why are these priority products there? Because they are bad for the environment. The international experience shows this. The EPR laws all over the world already includes this kind of products, and they need to comply with certain criteria in order to be included in this list. But for instance, packaging is one of the priority products, and packaging has many different kinds of materials, among them plastics. But for instance, let's think about PVC. If PVC is a plastic that is known for its environmental issues, if PVC is in packaging, fine. Then it is subject to the EPR law and it will be recycled. If PVC is in something else, I don't know, toys, pipes, curtains, whatever, then it will not be recycled, even though it is the same material with the same problematic characteristics. So is the product approach the best approach for EPRs, or should it be focused on materials or the use of energy or the sources of energy or whatever? So this is just a question. Then let's say EPR law, recycling plastic or recycling glass. Glass in Chile has been recycled for decades, and there is a whole lot of installed capacity to do that. And it began not because of an EPR law. It began just because of the regular market costumes and laws, I would say, entrepreneurship and people installing factories in order to be able to recycle this, and so many different things. But then, if you compare the environmental impact based on life cycle assessment of recycling glass and using virgin material to make glass, then you discover that you save only 30% of the energy. Let's say glass, the materials to make glass are abundant. It's basically made of sand. Then you need a whole lot of energy to melt that in order to make it glass. And you need also a lot of energy to melt the glass itself. So you need almost the same amount of energy to melt glass from virgin material or to make recycled glass made from used glass. So you still need a lot of energy. So then you can understand something like this if you have this life cycle perspective on your mind. If not, you will not see that there can be problems because of recycling glass. This is just an example. I'm not saying that it's bad to recycle the glass, but sometimes, and maybe in the same way, and I was thinking also about some of the examples that Antonia mentioned that we have here, this increasingly enforced regulations to forbid the use of plastics for one use. We banned some months ago or years, I don't know, maybe years after the pandemic. It's kind of difficult to trace back the time, but banned plastic bags from the supermarkets. Okay, so you don't go to the supermarket and nobody gives you any more bags for free. What do you now? What you do now is you buy from your pocket the bag, which weighs 20 times more than the plastic bag they were giving you, and then you use this reusable bag for a certain amount of time, but afterwards it becomes waste anyway. You know, the fatal destiny. So again, the life cycle perspective or systems perspective allows seeing more far away in the future and broadly also as well. Finally, this bag, I'm talking about this example, eventually will become waste. It can end in the sea anyway, just like the other one, but it's much more material. Furthermore, many people, poor people, were saving money, not buying plastic bags because they were using the plastic bags that they were given at the supermarket. Now they have to buy plastic bags to put their garbage on and still continue, and that garbage continues going to the landfill. So a plastic bag continues going to the landfill, but this time it's not free. You pay for it and you buy because you buy the bag to put your garbage in. So I think the system perspective allows understanding if we are doing it right or not. I don't think the circular economy concepts per se are good or bad. I think that there are better ways and worse ways of doing this. But I think that in order to figure out if what we are doing is right or wrong, we have to kind of step back and take a closer look to some basic stuff like the laws of thermodynamics, for instance, and have a systems perspective to understand the problems holistically, and so we can see the whole problem and not just parts of it. I don't know if I answered the question. Maybe I was too long.
Thank you, Oscar. Do you want to add something about the local capacity, or you're done?
Sorry. Yes, the local capacity. Well, local capacity in Chile, we have capacity to recycle and reuse some things, and most of that capacity has been growing over time with no EPR law, just because of the marketplace. Let's say. I think that if we are going to recycle the amounts of materials that we were not recycling because we did not have EPR laws in the past, then we will need more installed capacity in order to do that. But nevertheless, we have some installed capacity. The country is so long that the waste should travel from thousands of kilometers away to get to the recycling facility. It would be similar, maybe it's closer to send the waste to another country. So if they have the installed capacity to recycle there. This is what we do today with aluminum cans in Brazil. The aluminum cans that we waste here go to recycle to Brazil. They have already that installed capacity. But then we, at the same time that we need to install more capacity, we need to make sure that that capacity uses the right sources of energy, for instance, fuels, so they don't pollute on another area that is not included in the EPR, because the EPR is focused on the waste management, but all the emissions derived from recycling, for instance, are not taken into account in the EPR law by itself. So again, in how we do it, I think it's very important, the how. It's not just what, it's how we do it, the key.
Okay, thank you, Oscar.
Sorry,
We
Gonzalo.
yes, Gianfranco.
I'm sorry. Alan Fox is still in the room, or he left? He left. No, probably left. So, Gonzalo.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions in the chat, and also Carmen from UNIF is raising her hand. So, Carmen, do you want to ask something?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Yes, I have a question to Antonia. First of all, actually, my compliments to everyone. It has been very nice to hear from all you. And I have a question to Antonia. I would like to understand better, have some of your ideas about how the political instabilities, it can be in Chile, but also in general, impact the planning and the implementing execution of this plan, the circular economy plan. Thank you.
That is a great question, and I will answer as myself personally, not representing any institution, but there's some key elements so that public policy maintains from one government to the other, right? First of all is the professionals that do not change during one government to the other one, right? Because you always have directors or undersecretaries, of course, that once the governments change, they leave, but then you have a very good professional group of people that stay, and they need to have the ability also to, once the government changes, to continue or do the continuity, or if they want to change the names of the programs, that's okay, but if the main focus remains, then this can happen. And I went through 3 governments, and we were able, I mean, the professional people that were there, to maintain and do public policy, or how we call política de Estado, so a state policy, right? We started with the green growth strategy, then we continued with the sustainable consumption and production program, and then, as you see now, there is a circular economy roadmap, but they're all interlinked, and that is because the professionals that are there are very compromised, and they do they continue this, and that's speaking from the public policy side. But there are also actors, and Gonzalo and I know actors from the universities that are keys, that also link public policy with university and usually help, right, to also maintain continuity between one government to the other. So I would say universities, or as I work now, which is Fundación Chile, is a public-private organization, right? Also have a key role to maintain what was written from one government to the other. Like I said, if they want to change the title, that's okay. But let's maintain the main focus of what has been written for years, or what the focus has been for years, right? So it is difficult. It is very challenging, as you said, and especially when you go from right wing to left wing, right wing to what, it's so extreme different political views, but you are able to do this continuity, right? So inside, the professionals that are there, that are not the ones that take decisions, but the one they maintain. And outside, you have universities, I think, that are key, and other, I wouldn't say NGO, but public-private organizations that need to maintain and do the trespassing, right, from one government to the other. That's my personal opinion, once again.
Thank you, Antonia, and also your personal experience. Thank you for sharing with us. I don't know if anyone wants to address the, we'll say, quite provocative question of Maria Alessandra Wilson from Vermont University, or the other question for the panel regarding environmental education. Jose Miguel.
I can take some of these questions. I will try to do it as efficient as I can. Concerning Maria's question, I think is very interesting. But I mean, the answer to that question would be standing from the Latin American point of view, that I think this is very relevant. First of all, you have to notice that most of the Latin American countries have natural resources-based economies. And this is very unique in comparison to Europe, and this is very relevant. Why I'm saying this, and I answer a little bit, in a short way in the chat, that energy is clue on what we're doing as an input and also as a product itself. As of course, you already know, 75% of the greenhouse, gas effects are coming from energy. And what agriculture uses as one of the inputs, as mining uses one of the inputs, and a few other natural resources-based sectors in Latin America using energy. So I would say that energy would be very, very relevant and very important. And countries are trying to make these transitions in using green sources to produce energy. But this is a challenge, because the only two countries who are doing this in a certain at a rate that we love to do it is Chile and Uruguay. And what is surprising about Chile and Uruguay, that we don't produce any single energy based on fuels, carbon fuels. So for us to promote an energy transition would be in a certain way more easy compared to Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Ecuador, and Venezuela, of course, that they already have a lot of production of energy based on carbon. So for those countries, it would be very complicated because they have the tensions between the current structure of the production based on some of the energy based on carbon. And when they switch to more clean ones, for them will be very complicated. For those who do not produce energy based on carbon, which is Uruguay and Chile mainly, are promoting this agenda, which is, so this is a challenge. And I think the good news are the impact in terms of, CO dioxide carbon production will be very relevant related with energy, but also the transition will be very hard for some countries because they don't have any incentives at all. And it's very complicated in countries, especially like Venezuela and a few others that I already mentioned. That's one of the questions to Maria. I know the answer all of it, but I think if we want to focus a little bit, energy will be one of them in terms of in our countries. I have a comment to Professor Soberli about his point, which are very relevant, and he slightly puts all this, consumption side effects, which I think this is very, very relevant. I will add few other ones to that in terms of what we have seen. Is the first is what prices effect may have on consumption, and I think that's very relevant as well. And I'm thinking especially on the tax issues. One of the challenges, I think, for economists is in a certain way to measure in a proper way all the bad externalities that some production of certain goods and services accomplish to the society and to the environment in particular. So as far as I know, as I'm saying in the case of Chile, for example, today we have a green tax, which is only $5 a ton of CO2. and the shadow price is more than 30 today, and probably will increase in the future. So you need to have a more strict tax policies in terms of this is giving the signals, not only on the ones who already, you mentioned about changing behavior related with more ethical, but also have to consider these issues as well. And I think I believe in this kind of mechanism. And the second one, which is very interesting, the main goal why firms innovate in Latin America is to fulfill regulations, norms. And this is the main one. It's not related with having more potential increase in profits or other things, or new markets. The main, by far, the main goal of innovation in the firms in Chile and in Latin America in general is to fulfill norms, regulations. So what I'm saying, if you put some norms and regulations which are related with, for example, issues related with environment, firms will be pushed to fulfill them. As already, because most of them are natural resource based industry. So we have to think this in a more comprehensive way, not only changes in the consumption patterns, as you already said, based on the Stiglitz effort, which I absolutely agree, but also have to be complementary with these kind of policies, which are more stick rather than carrot ones, I would say. So tax issues, I think, very important to make this consistent, and also regulations and norms, which I think also will help. Sorry for being so long.
Well, thank you very much. Really interesting your comments and reflections on this. Professor Franz, Gianfranco, Giangi, do you want to say something?
No. Okay. Roberto has a comment.
Roberto, do you want to comment something? Okay.
Yeah, briefly a comment about taxation and the economic instruments. As an economist, I believe in economic instruments by definition. This is my culture in approaching environmental policy in a way, or the key point of my culture. But however, we should keep in mind that we have a problem with environmental taxation in that sometimes it is regressive. Regressive means that it is much more heavy for the poorest part of population. And we have a lot of issues to solve in the application of this taxation approach. For example, in Europe, we are going to transfer to consumer the alleged cost of the emission trading system for industries. Okay, we can discuss a lot. I think it is not a cost for them, or they have to face the cost in a different way by innovation and by investing, and instead they are somewhat allowed to transfer the burden of cost of emission trading system to consumers. Okay. So we may reason in terms also of consumer responsibility principle. Okay, we are used to reason in terms of producer responsibility principle, and we can also reason in terms of consumer responsibility principle. But I think that the approach to consumer can be much more articulated, and also to make consumer to participate to the benefits to the circular economy. I give you an example. We are spending, in Italy, we are spending every day our time and our effort in preparing materials for recycling. When we make a separate collection, and the heavy separate collection, very careful, we are spending time. But we pay for waste management. We receive nothing for that. We are not rewarded for our participation and to be the first workers of the recycling industry, which is a profitable industry. Okay, so I think that we have to rethink a lot about the role of consumers and in the circular economy and in general in implementing the transition to sustainability, pointing to incentives, tangible incentives, pointing to moral principle and the changing culture. We have to put everything together and integrate in a new vision of consumers in the transition. I take the opportunity to stress a point. Most of the circular economy policies are supply oriented. There is almost nothing toward consumer beyond information and so on. This is typical of public policies to point to the supply side instead of the demand side. And this is a problem because we have a great opportunity to trigger the demand side, for example, with green public procurement. Here in Europe, we are trying to move to a serious approach to green public procurement that will be a fantastic trigger for the circular economy. And this is not mature, this approach. This is my comment.
Thank you, Professor Sofoli. Very interesting the discussion that we are having here. We have been for like 2.5 hours, a little bit more in this presentation and discussion. So I want to offer sorry, I was reading the chat because there's some interesting discussion there. I want to offer a last round of 1 minute if anyone of the panelists wants to address some final remarks on this, on all the things that we have been discussing this morning in Latin America and this afternoon in Europe. So we can offer 1-2 minutes if you want to add something to the discussion, and then we will close this day, and later on we will close all the symposium, because this is, as I told you at the beginning, the last day of this 4-day symposium. So I will offer Professor Sofoli if you want to make some last comments, remarks.
My final remark is that I'm very glad to have participated to this discussion, and I would like to deepen the interaction with you and Latin America. I love Latin America also for personal reasons, as my daughter is married to a Colombian boy, and so I have a nephew who is Italian and Colombian, and so on. I am in love with Latin America. Okay, but beyond these personal aspects, I like very much this discussion, and very, very interested in this broad picture of principle and attitudes and ideas and actions. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you, Professor Sofoli, for being with us today. For sure, one of the main objectives of this symposium is trying to stress the relationship between Latin America and Europe. So it's great to hear that. Antonia, do you want to add some final remarks?
Sure. Thank you once again for the invitation, and wanted to point out regarding the demand side, very interesting, because in Chile we worked for 7 years on green public procurement with 2 governments. So it is there. We have to push it again. Remember, there's $13 billion yearly that are transactions that happen there. So with 2 or 3 key points or sustainable criteria there, you can move a lot from the demand side. So I would consider this again for the next government, right? Because this government will end very soon. So in March next year, we have a new government, and they should consider this fast. And there was a question regarding environmental education, or yes, environmental education, I think, is key as a complementary tool. But we are in such a climate crisis right now that we need pushes faster than environmental education. And I would say the approach that economists also suggest as nudges is a key element to incorporate also to the public policy. We need to move faster, so we need those nudges. And also wanted to point out that the donut approach, right, that was done in Amsterdam is very, I would say, is a great solution for more territorial point of view, right? So I would consider also this, all of this thinking of what is coming next for Chile. And as the great question that was appointed to me is how we do this transition now that we will change government. I think these three key elements, sustainable public procurement, the nudges that can be done from public policy, especially the people that don't want to change their pattern of sustainable consumption production. What do we do with them? Then we need to push, right? We need to push slightly, right? The behavioral economics regarding and territorially speaking, the donut approach, I think would be very interesting. So that would be, and thank you once again for the invitation.
Thank you, Antonia. Yeah, great comments. Maria Jose, do you want to add some final remarks?
Yes, very short. Only to say that really, I understand today we are talking about green economy, circular economy, donut approach, and a lot of buzzwords. At least I think what is important, we are in a tipping point. I think that we need to rename or change the way. I don't care so much the name. All are very interesting, all are complementary. I think they're very interesting, all the different strategy. But I think we are in a fermental moment. That's why there are so many ideas and concepts, and that's a good sign. The big challenge is to apply this strategy, and particularly in circular economy, I think you can do it very well to connect with the climate challenge we have today. There are very good strategy connected to that, and also in the efficiency in the use of resources. That is a big challenge we have already as a country also. So I really think that's a great opportunity space to discuss. We need to discuss a lot of these topics. You hear a lot of things that are not correct or maybe confused and simplify some concepts. So this kind of instances are very, very welcome. So thank you very much for the possibility to be here.
Thank you very much, Maria Jose. Oscar, do you want to make some final comments?
Yes, like Professor Soboli, I would like to thank also everybody for the invitation and for being here. And I've learned a lot with the presentations, and I would like to continue doing research about the circular economy and explore a bit more the growth approach, which has been contested for decades, and we can find it nowadays in the Ellen MacArthur Foundation website. Economics is a very important topic, and as someone mentioned in the chat, environmental, economic, and social issues should the three be addressed. I agree, and I think this was a very good experience for me to be here and hear what you have said, and would like to continue some of this conversation, maybe continue collaborating in the future with these wonderful people that have attended. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oscar. The other idea of this kind of symposium is fostering the network roots towards sustainability, in which we are all been part of different universities and for sure new collaboration projects for the future. Jose Miguel,
thank you, Gonzalo, for inviting me.
Thank you, Oscar. Do you want to, Jose Miguel, do you want to make some final comments?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Really appreciate and learn a lot about the experiences coming from our region and from Europe as well. I really enjoyed Professor Zaboletti's arguments and visions about these issues, which I really appreciate. And concerning the question, I'm linked to the question that Alan Fox raised, and also what we already said, Gonzalo. I think, for example, the bank is promoting a lot of this mechanism of, complementarities and help between, different universities coming from different regions. I mean, Latin America can learn a lot about what Europe experience related with these issues. But I think, as already been said, Europe also can learn about, what's going on in Latin America and what are the many challenges that we're facing. And probably they are different. We are facing in a different way. We have all this history and, and particularities that can have been already said that could be very interesting for European eyes. And also the way that they interact also could be very interesting. I mean, one of them is kind of formal programs that universities in this side, the Atlantic, on the other side, the Atlantic already have an interchange of people, etc., through, more through these platforms, a few others. But also there are another mechanism that we, in at least in the IDB, we are pushing, like the boot camps, we are pushing another mechanism that only have been targeted to more formal students who long run, like 2 or 5 year programs. But also you can do it in a more technical way, more condensed, because as far as we see from the Latin American side is, if we want to push this agenda, and also Professor Sobelia already said, there's a lack of technical people to do this, inside the firms, inside the governments to understand. And as Antonio would say, it's so important that you have, public servants that are aware and technically prepared to do these transitions. And these people are not widespread in our region. So not only through formal, and more long-term, kind of education, but also more focused and more technical, also would be a very interesting avenue to, to complement duties related to education in our both group of countries. And also we also stress what Antonio was saying about, the education in terms of consumers in general, citizens in general. I think there's also a very challenge there for us. This is not going to be solved at the university level, but also in the educational strategy that our country, especially in Latin America, to make people more concerned about in a direction that preferences from the consumer side, as economists would say, they have also in a transformation, and you can do this, through especially education, the tertiary and secondary education. So I think there are several ways that we can do this, and I thank you very much. I really appreciate your invitation to participate, and please do consider the bank in if we can provide some support for this kind of activities. Please do so. And thanks again.
Thank you very much, Jose Miguel, for making us think in different new ways of collaboration that I think they are really important, and also for offering the participation and support of the bank. Thank you very much for that. Gonzalo, do you want to add some final remarks?
Okay. Very briefly, just thanks again for the invitation, and I just want to reinforce what I already said and was already said by many of the speakers. I guess when we talk about integral development, we have to ask ourselves a very simple question, and this question is, what is that really distinguish human beings? If it is only our capacity to create and consume products, or there are many other more important things that we are not putting in debate. And saying this, I want to reinforce a very simple idea. We need, in order to arrive to this integral development, we need to work with the same level of intensity in the implementation of technical solutions. We know we have many very important technical solutions, but in the same level, we have to work in the problematization of philosophical and conceptual basis of the current model. This is for me, the most important thing we have to put in the debate. And I think that at the base of this problematization, without a doubt, is the ethical question. I guess this is the most important challenge we have, civilization as a whole. I believe it's the most relevant of all questions we can introduce in the debate. That in general, due to the urgency of the need to find technical solutions to the problems we have that are many and very complex, this issue is not analyzed too much as it might be. But if we see, very simple, that our development model is leading to the extinction of a species, I put much more energy on this idea. Our model is leading to extinction of a species that is of life. And if we all agree that life has value by itself, perhaps we can realize that the real problem, the most important problem we have, is eminently ethical. It's an ethical problem. It's not an economical, not a technical, not a political. Of course, there are many ways to use political, economical, and technical approach to bring solution. But in the center of the problem is an ethical problem. And that is why the religion is helping us, the religion, the philosophers, and the people that are trying to find different ways to analyze the problem are helping us to talk about this. And this is the main idea I want to share. For us, we have like a big consciousness that we have many technical solutions. And basically, most of these technical solutions have already been implemented by nature. So nature already worked very well since 4,000 years, a million years. So if we take the technical approach, learning from nature, and we accompany this approach with our capacity to bring sense to what development means, we will have a lot of opportunity to solve the problems we are facing. But if we do not problematize this, the ethical and moral problems, it will be quite difficult to solve the current present. Well, this is just an idea I want to share with you. And thank you again for the invitation to participate.
Thank you, Gonzalo, for raising that. That is probably the main issue that make us develop this this whole symposium of looking for this integral development as a different way of thinking on the idea of development. I want to thank you, all of the panelists. This has been a really a great discussion, almost 3 hours discussion on this really relevant topic. So thank you very much for your participation in this. We are looking forward to follow up this kind of activities. And I want to give the floor to Professor Gianfranco Franz and Caterina Rondoni, that they are going to make the closing of the symposium today.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Before Professor Franz is going to close the symposium, I would just like to add a very brief reflection in the framework of what we said the last Wednesday during the 3rd days of the symposium. And also what we say today, that is, I really believe, as many other of us, that another world is possible, just not in the future. And I believe that somewhere else it is already happening. But unfortunately, especially in Europe, often we lack the ability to imagine a different world and different systems. And for example, in which food is not treated by the market like any other commodities produced to be sold, but it is considered a primary good, fundamental for the realization of human rights, and can pass through preferential channel. So neoliberalism, like all previous economic current, was imagined by a group of people and is not a superhuman system. So, and if it was possible to imagine it, I do not see why we cannot work to imagine something equal complex, but more equal and fair. So the pandemic can show us unequivocally that something is not working well, and now this next step will be to replace that something that does not work with new paradigms, new social economic models made up of and for people, right, nature and the future. So I think that to do this, first we need to realize how complex and mega diverse the world is. And when we accept this mega diversity, recover a moral attitude, as Professor Zoboli said before, and change the mindset, as Maria Jose says, and we must understand and cultivate this diversity. And the last thing, listen to Professor Huerta before, came in my mind a concept. I don't know if you know or if you are familiar with the idea of overview effect. That is a feeling shared by the astronaut when they see the Earth from the space, and they see the Earth as a unit and as a spaceship travel in the same direction. So I think that this is the idea that we should try to develop and put in action to work together and have a real change. Thank you. And I leave the floor to Professor Franz.
Thank you, Caterina. Thank you, Gonzalo. Today we learned a lot about the fascinating concept and also about some practices of circularity and its potential in our route toward transition and eco-innovation. I wish to thank all our guests and panelists of today for their contribution, for the statements and suggestions we received. And working on this new model of circular economy is very exciting and amazing, even if I see a problem of incompleteness. The question I want to share with you is how we can handle this contradiction between the emergent paradigm of circularity and the prominence and the persistence of the Cartesian mental paradigm. Is a sort of the Cartesian paradigm is exquisitely linear and has been guiding our thinking by centuries. So I think that there is a lot of work to do to advance on this route. It's true, as Antonia suggested, that the climate crisis is pushing us to move faster. But I need that we have also to think deeper. And there is a great need of innovation in education, as Jose Michele argued. And I completely agree with Gonzalo del Castillo. We have to solve the ethical question, respect nature. I hope, and we need some philosopher just able to guide us, to guide our thinking and our thought. Finally, just to conclude this adventure, after our 4 days symposium, after a lot of knowledge and wisdom shared through the Atlantic Ocean, thanks to all our panelists, more or less 22, we know something more about the relevance of the concept of integral development. And but we still have to fight against the contaminating idea of growth, even if many dress it with concepts such as sustainable, green, inclusive, and circular. I'm not speaking about the growth. I'm speaking that the problem is the concept, the paradigm of growth that we have. I think that we must work to build a peace agreement between man and nature, finding a new balance between science, technologies, and cultures, because I'm convinced that science, technology, and data will not save humans from themselves. I want to thank all of you for this extraordinary experience, being grateful to the great work developed by Caterina Rondoni for first, but then by Gonzalo Valdivieso, by Francisco Paco Albuquerque, and also by Fernando Diaz Lopez. We were speaking with Don Enrique Iglesias, with Romano Prodi, and also other people about the possibility to move on with this experience. And so I think that we have many possibilities, and there is a lot to share, especially between Europe and Latin America. So we will meet again in October, and in the while, we will share more with all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gianfranco. Thank you all for being with us. Caterina, I think we have to stop the streaming.
Yes, I think that we have to leave because they're not in the office, so they will stop like in a while. So
okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye bye.